All right, hello, and welcome back to Preds Per Hour here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ over there in Nashville, Tennessee, the one and only on the Forechecks, Bryan Bastin. Bryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I've survived all these storms, and I survived the NHL awards and the draft, so yeah, I came out on the other side feeling kind of okay. So yeah, I'm here. So let's do a late night podcast.
You are here. You saw our other co-host here tonight, Jeff Middleton of Flames Nation and Renegades of Puck, this week at the draft party in Nashville. Jeff, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. Unlike Bryan, I didn't have to survive any storms today. Instead, I just got to relax on the beach. But yeah, I'm doing all right.
There you go. How was the draft? Y'all saw each other. What did y'all do? What was the best thing you saw? What was the coolest part of being at the draft live this week?
A combination of things. I mean, one of it was just because the entire hockey world was in town. I got to see a ton of people that I'm acquaintances with, or people I've known forever, on Twitter, back when Twitter worked all the time.
Simpler times.
Yeah, that was really great. See, so many of those people, getting to see a lot of people around the NHL that were in town. We saw, Jeff and I saw several people at that party and around town and things like that. So, I mean, it was just great. But I think for me, the best part was in between, waiting for the Preds to make picks and things like that on day one. I was walking around, taking pictures and getting some interviews in with other prospects that have been drafted. I mean, I got to sit and listen to Connor Bedard's first interview, which I thought was really cool. And all these guys, I mean, from Bedard all the way down, every single one of them is so excited just to be there. I think like 4 or 5 of them that I listened to, they both said something, related to like, I'm not sure that this is still real. Like, I don't know how, once they said my name, I don't remember anything from, until about right now. And that's just really cool because these are kids, it's 17, 18-year-olds. And it's really cool to see them get to like kind of live that dream. If they're going to, hopefully play in the NHL because they got drafted. So that was really, I think that was my favorite part.
I like it. What about you, Jeff?
Honestly, I think my favorite part was one, like meeting people that, I've written with, I've done podcasts with, like they're a guy who currently writes about the Coyotes for NHL.com, Pat Brown. We used to write together, and we used to do stuff over at the Hockey Writer together. We were on the same podcast, the Grindline podcast. Shout out to my friends over there. But yeah, it was great to meet him finally. It's been a couple years since I first got acquainted with him. And so this was the first time that we ever got a chance to meet. And he was great. And then, just looking, I got to sit on the floor for the awards. And so just kind of seeing all these guys up close, it was super cool. Got to meet Pecorino after with Bryan. That was really great. He was awesome as usual. I got a fist bump from Jack Hughes. He was cool too. Like it was, yeah, like there's all these superstars walking back and forth. Like, usually like you got used to it after a little while, but you first sat down there and you were kind of just like, oh my God, like it was a wave of Connor McDavid, Connor Hellebuck, Cale Makar, Matthew Tkachuk, like all these guys that were, you watch them do these incredible things on TV, and like I'd never been that close to him before in my life. So it was really cool.
Who was the most star? Like, who was the guy that everyone was trying to flock to? Who was getting bothered the most?
At the awards, probably. Yeah. That's a good question, actually. Now that I think about it, I mean, Jack Hughes always gets a crowd. You know who actually, I just
Quinn's
thought
over there somewhere in the corner, like
yeah.
Yeah. I just thought, and you know who I think it is? I think it's Marty Brodeur.
Huh.
Marty Brodeur sat in front of us, and he, after the awards were over, we were walking out, and people had been asking, like there were a bunch of people that were trying to get pictures with him and stuff like that. So yeah, that would probably be my answer.
Marty Brodeur, still a national star.
Yeah.
That's not surprising. I feel like,
do you think
goalie is the biggest star type of potential of anyone, like off the ice? Do you think it's goalies who resonate the most?
It would have to, I think it's in the way that, like, I don't know. I wouldn't say that because there's so many of them that you have to be a special kind of player to be kind of like universally beloved, or you have to be like an all-time great, or just be a personality. And for most goaltenders, I mean, people are kind of hardwired to not like goaltenders for the most part, because and so most teams aren't blessed like Nashville is to have a string of very likable goaltenders. So no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's kind of like having like somebody who's a big star in the NFL who's like a free safety. Like,
it's like everyone has their own. Like Brian Dawkins is probably like a good example. Like the goalie is just everyone's Brian Dawkins, or like just Draymond Green. Like everybody's goalie is their Draymond Green, where opposing teams hate him and he's your guy. Like everyone is all true. In on. I'm sure Saros has his detractors outside of Nashville, and your man who will be following him is going to have some detractors whenever.
So let me tell you. Something that was not my favorite at the draft this week was I was bouncing back and forth doing taking care of the kids, dropping them off with the grandparents, working. So day one of the draft, I spent the first half of the day at work downtown and running back and forth. And but I finally get there. I get changed after work's over. I go to walk down to Bridgestone. I get there, and as I look at my phone to figure out where I'm supposed to go, I'm seeing that, Nashville's trying hard to trade Askarov to move up into the top 10. And I was just like, come on now. Like, you can't do this to me right now. I guess I was like, yes, I think it's better than moving Saros, I guess, but...
Is it? Are you there? You would be more okay with Saros than
Askarov? How much I love Askarov.
That's what I'm saying. This is surprising.
I know one player is a top 3 goaltender in the NHL right now, and the other one could be great, but that still could be. If you could guarantee me he'd be top 5, would he still be better or worse holding on to than, Saros, and you still want to take that chance. So, I mean, if you're going to do one way or the other. Now, I understand with, if you're trying to, extend that rebuild out and it's going to be 3 years before they're competitive. Yes, Saros is going to help keep you kind of being competitive, but you never know if Askarov's going to turn out to be a good goaltender. It may not work out at all. I know the chances of that seem like it'd be a little bit smaller being in Nashville and the talent of this guy. But I mean, Saros could play another 6-7 years at this level. Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe not elite every single year, but I mean, he's a young kid. I mean, he is literally a kid. And so he could do this for 8-9 more years if he wanted.
We're just about to find out how much he's willing to take. Is he willing to follow the John Gibson route for a couple of years in Nashville? Is he built like that? We're about to see. Well, there was something that feels like 19 years ago now because of the flurry. Just this week alone, the combination of NBA and NHL moves that are just happening one after the other, and just trying to keep up with who's who. And then the Hawks draft, the Braves are beating the living hell out of everybody. Tennessee is closing in another top 10 class. Apologies to Jeff.
Don't apologize.
Was not listed anywhere in the top 25, so it's just hard. I didn't want to scroll back too far. But there was a player who was probably the biggest surprise. We have not really touched on this offseason, that hey, watch out for Matt Duchene. He might be on the chopping block. That was not something that any of the three of us thought was DFA'd was a possibility for Duchene. Jeff, your immediate reaction when Duchene was announced that he was not only not going to be a member of the Nashville Predators anymore, but also the Preds were going to eat a lot of salary for him to not play hockey for the Predators anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of confusion. I mean, it popped up on my phone, and I was heading to the beach, I was on the beach, and I was scrolling through, and I was just kind of like, all right, I didn't think anything was going to happen. And, it popped up that, I saw, I don't know if it was Frank Saravalli tweeted it, but it was Matt Duchene has been placed on waivers, for a buyout. And I was just kind of slapped in the face. I didn't really know what to do. And I was confused, really. We talked about why buying out Ryan Johansen was a bad move. He had $8 million left for 2 years. What's the point? And then they trade Ryan Johansen for nothing. And then
they buy out
Matt. They eat half of his salary, and then they do the thing that we didn't want them to do in the first place with a better player, which like I don't understand that at all. And there's a lot of people out there, people who have arguing that Matt Duchene wasn't good for the locker room because Barry Trotz said something about culture. And I think people are taking that as Matt Duchene was a cancer, which is not, by all accounts that I've trusted and trust still to this day, that I don't believe that. Like, I think there are people who I trust fully that will come out on the record and be like, this is not what's like accurate at all. But like, I just don't understand. But like, I think in 25, 26, they're going to be paying him like $6.1 million to play against him. Like, and they're paying him a bunch of money now. And he just signed with Dallas for $3 million for a year. Like, you're paying him more money to play against you than you are to just have him on the roster. Like, I don't understand it at all. His total amount of money that he's playing against you for is,
especially the timing, right? Where he's coming off a down year, a weird blip year that we'll see whether or not this past year was maybe what he's going to be going forward, or is he who he was? Can he get back to who he was 2 years ago, which is a really, really important player and a big time player and a contender. Like, the worst, it's a buy low. It's like the John Collins thing where it's like, you're just moving him to move him. You're still going to eat this money. You're still going to have to play against him for years. He's still a helpful, useful player. And it's also like, I don't know if you feel the same, Brian, but he wasn't going to move the needle. You could still be going through a rebuild. And if Matt Duchene's cool being around for a rebuild, he can play really well, get more opportunities, and then you can trade him for more value months down the line, because you've seen not that far away that he was a really, really good hockey player. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, so yeah, I mean, and like Jeff had said, like, part of it is a lot of people were like, oh, everybody was talking about how they wanted to rebuild and now they're doing it and everybody hates it. And it's like, yes, part of it is that people don't like to see certain players go because they're kind of favorites. And I will say that, like, yeah, Duchene didn't have the year he had 2 years ago, but nobody on the team did. And he still was the third best player on the team, maybe fourth, depending on.
I was going to say, I mean, I argue he was better than Forsberg.
Yeah, he's a little more consistent than Forsberg as well.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that, he and Johansen, ironically, both took a really big leadership role during, when the Preds were so injured, and there were all these guys up from the Admirals that were playing, that they were acting as mentors for all these guys, because these were, they were going out there with 4, 5, 6 teammates that are, under 23 and have barely played in the NHL. But, I think if you look at it in the sense of what they wanted to do moving forward, it's just the buyout and the way that it's structured and the way that this deal is not that old. The fact that, they were willing to eat this cost, and you've got, it's going to be, like you said, I think over the next 2 years, it's 2.5 for next year, and then 5.5 million, 24, 6.5 and 25, and then 1.5 for 3 more years after that. I mean, look at the dead cap that Nashville has, and you kind of see a trend of where this team's going. Ryan Johansen, $4 million over the next 2 years. Matthias Ekholm, $250,000, which is not bad. That was actually a pretty good move. But Matt Duchene and Kyle Turris, both are going to be on the books for at least the next 5 years. So I mean, that's, if you want to break down kind of the things that David Poile tried to do, especially in the last decade or so, is going after having a first line center, and you see Ryan Johansen, you see Kyle Turris, and you see Matt Duchene all out, and they're paying money to get rid of those guys. So I don't think that it's a malicious type thing, but I think obviously Barry Trotz, his vision of how he wants to mold this team down the middle, it's not lining up at all with what David Poile had in mind. So
I also think, like, you look at those guys like Kyle Turris, he just wasn't playing, like, straight up. He just was not playing, thanks to the newest head coach of the New York Rangers. But like, Matt Duchene was still an effective player. Like, you could trust Matt Duchene to score like at least 55 points a year if you keep him with the right line mates. Like, and that was never, like, even when he had his down years, his analytics were still good. He's been one of the top analytical contributors at the very least since he's gotten to Nashville. And what's funny is, like, these, especially with the signings today, it's super counterintuitive, because you buy out Ryan Johansen, and you have a style of play that you want to try and instill in the team, and that's fine, because Ryan Johansen, if you come in and you say you want speed and skill and you want youth, that's not Ryan Johansen. As I said that last podcast, it's not Ryan Johansen. You buy him out, you get rid of him, it's fine. He understands that he's not part of the vision. But Matt Duchene plays the exact kind of game that Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett have both talked about. And I don't understand, he's still an effective player. He's one of the best transition forwards in the entire NHL. He can score.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
He can score. He can score a perfectly. Is he worth $8 million? No, but I also don't think he's worth paying $4.5 million over the next 3 years after his contract would end. I just don't get the logic behind it. And I hope Barry Trotz comes out and says, I hope he's, he has a presser and they ask him about it, and he's just straight up about why he did it. And I'm more than willing to eat my words if he comes out and is like, yeah, we had some problems in the locker room with Matt Duchene. He's not going to say that. But, if something comes out about that and then they're like, we need a culture change, and then they buy him out, then that's fine. I'm okay to eat my words on that. But, as of now, we have no evidence to suggest that he's, one, a locker room cancer, and two, that he wouldn't be an effective player by the time his contract runs out. He's never worth $8 million. But I also don't think he's worth, taking away $6.5 million of your cap space and then paying him another $4.5 million after the next 3 years after, just because you want to get rid of him for a culture change. I just don't get it.
I mean, so let's another thing, and this drove a lot of free agency, and what we saw, today, is that the cap went up to $83.5 million for this next season, which is a $1 million increase after it being flat since COVID. Next year is going to be flat as well, so it's not going to go up or right after this. But then 2024, that's when the cap jumps up. The cap's going to jump up by $4 million, and in that year, with $4 million available to all these other teams, Nashville is going to be paying almost over $12 million to players that aren't playing for them. So not only are they losing that advantage of getting the extra $4 million with the salary cap increasing, but they're going to be down still $8 million for these guys who aren't going to play for them. And it's Turris, I get, that was a failed experiment for a variety of reasons, but that's something that they had to eat the cost of that, because that was not going to work. Matt Duchene, like you said, excellent player in transition. There's only one other player on the Stars right now that is as good in transition as Matt Duchene is, and so you look and it's kind of all right, I get why you want to move away from it, but wait for the deadline. I thought
there's no rush. There's zero rush.
I mean, they're not
worst case scenario. He has 1 year where he's he plays as good as he did last year.
Yeah,
and I mean, you have the $8 million on the
his
books.
value can only go up.
You're saving
no chance it was going to be worse.
Right, yeah. You save $5 million this coming season by buying him out, which is fine. They want that extra space for something, but then you're going to lose. You only save $2.5 million, then $1.5 million over the next 2 years, where you're trying to turn around and become competitive. It wasn't that the fact that it wasn't a great move that I would have agreed with, but if they could have done it any other way, to move him.
You're telling me that no one wanted Matt Duchene for free?
Yeah, or
really?
For something, yeah. And so it's a little, again, I understand that if they're trying to make the team go a different direction, which is justifiable, that hey, Duchene was great, but maybe it's just it didn't quite work out, and we have some people in mind that fit the mold better. Cool, but it was how it was done, and it kind of screams the Ryan Johansen move was kind of it wasn't great they retained that salary, but I was it's a better than a buyout, and he was the one that they'd been trying to shop for so long. The Duchene thing is just kind of Poyle spent more time trying to get Duchene than Duchene spent time actually in Nashville.
Also, can we bring back to the trade deadline this year? Do we remember what how the NHL world viewed what the Preds did at the deadline? Where there was one trade in particular where everyone was refreshing their phone, where they're like, the Preds got what? For what? That wasn't that long ago. This is one of those things where I think if Barry Trotz does a presser over this and what he's decided to do this summer, that's something that has to be brought up, is you bring him in, you let Matt Duchene, you can reset the culture, whatever. It didn't need to be reset early July. It didn't need to be reset now. There was nothing last year that indicated that Matt Duchene being on the roster for 4 more months was going to significantly harm the long-term build of what Barry Trotz, whatever that is for Barry Trotz. It wasn't to the point where it was actually going to be a detriment where they couldn't still fulfill his vision years down the line. Those two things do not have to intersect. And you could have gotten a whole lot more. I mean, I look at what they did at the deadline this year where we came out of it. If you go back and listen to our pods, we're like, they did a lot better than we thought they were going to do. They set themselves up. They picked a direction. They also made smart moves. They made smart moves at the deadline. They set themselves up. And what you've seen so far with Trotz is the exact opposite, where it's like, I don't know what him and Boyle were talking about for the last month and a half, but now I think it's fair, and this might lead us into just the Barry Trotz question as a whole, where like, is he too gung-ho? Is he too much like I'm the coach in him, where he's like, I want to get my guys in, I want to put my stamp on this team that I am running this sooner rather than later. This is my show. We're getting all my guys, getting everybody else out. I'm biting the bullet. I'm taking my hard medicine and making some tough decisions with some vets and stuff like that. But like, someone should be in the room in the Preds front office of like, hey man, I understand what you're angling for here, but I think we might be able to do better than what we're doing over the last week.
I will say, like, I think that this one being I think part of the reason the backlash for this too is that it kind of almost doesn't line up with what has been done so far. Like you said, the deadline, I think it was a very effective, like they did what they wanted to set out to do. It was looking towards the future. And obviously they didn't get rid of some of these guys in the middle of the season, because I think, they were still trying to decide if the season was salvageable, which again, lest we forget, it almost was a playoff season again. But I mean, the rest of the moves, the Johansen move made sense to me, just because they avoided the buyout and everything. And I've kind of liked, everything leading up into this week into free agency that, hey, I can understand the justification for the reason. It's just the Duchene one sticks out because it didn't seem like it's the rest. Now we can talk about things that happened today and how.
Well, can we also mention, by the way, just like we'll talk today. Do y'all remember off the top of your head what Tanner Jeannot brought in at the deadline?
It was a two firsts, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. I don't know the
one
years.
1 1 second, 1 4th, 1 3rd, and 1 5th.
Yeah.
You're telling me you couldn't get anywhere close to that with Matt Duchene if you keep him around for 4 months?
Well,
Matt Duchene for free for future considerations.
Now, I will say this, and this is another thing that I had forgotten, and I'm kind of mad at myself for forgetting again. Matt Duchene's trade protection, his no trade clause, kicked in today. So
trade him, like what Jeff's saying, to wherever he wants to go, but they'll eat this out. Like trade him somewhere where they would still not be in a situation.
Right, but they're not only have they given him away for free, but they've also, the next team doesn't have to deal with the rest of that contract, doesn't have to deal with the no trade clause.
Yeah,
and that's probably part of the reason why it was hard to find a buyer there. But I can't believe that some of these salary dump teams.
Does Forsberg have a no trade clause?
He will. I'm not. Let me check and see if he's still if it's inactive, if it's active right now or not. I think
that might be something to monitor.
Yeah, no, I know he does. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, actually, his is a no move clause the entire way through until the last 2 years are modified no trade clauses. So yeah, he's not. But I mean,
he's the Will Smith meme right now.
Well, and he's a guy you can kind of build around, he's a guy that you can have around into his into the later parts of his career. And he's still kind of the face of the franchise. Get rid of Forsberg too. And it's like, what's bringing this team back, but fans back besides Yossi at that point,
Well, let's ask the question real quick before we do what they did today. The odds, now that you've seen what Barry has done over the last 2 weeks, the percentage that Philip Forsberg is a Predator at this time next year. Brian,
100%.
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like the only way I can see out of it is if like and I hate to say it, but like a career-ending situation. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you asked that question 3 years down the line, and I think that percentage might get lower. But I think as of now, he's committed here. He has a wife here.
He bought into the Nashville SC.
Yeah, he did buy into Nashville SC.
That's right. Okay.
Him and Giannis.
The natural pairing that we never knew they needed.
Philip Forsberg has a lot of, like, I've learned, he's got a lot of street cred in like other athletics, like other athletes. He's got some cred, he's got his best buddy out there.
George Kittle.
George Kittle, So
That's got to be a Haslam thing though, because Jimmy bought a minority stake in the Bucks, and obviously with Giannis, and then with Bill Haslam coming into the Preds, there had to be a connection. They probably
I'd be interested in that. Yeah.
But in terms of what happened today, Bryan? Roll it out. What was going on? What Bryan was fighting for his life with the Nashville Thunderstorms, and keeping power because the hockey gods did not want Bryan to have a good holiday weekend
or a functional website to communicate on. Mm-hmm. So there was a bunch of moves, which again, I expected there to be moves made, today to fill in, and we can talk about a handful of them. I think the first one that came through, I believe, was Gustav Nyquist. And that's an interesting one. I'm trying to really figure out how I want to, but I mean, it's just, again, it seems like counterintuitive, kind of like Jeff said about, getting rid of a guy who's older, he's not going to be a fast kind of player. And Gustav didn't play much in the NHL last year, did he? Or if I remember correct?
He was hurt last year.
That's
if
right.
I remember correctly.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just, he's not been great. I mean, I'm really, to be honest. So he's looking at Evolving Wild, overall, an 18 out of 100, basically 18%. He is a guy who
he played 48 games last year.
48 games. Okay.
That's more than I thought he did, actually.
Yeah.
And he played 82 the year before he played full season.
But I mean, he doesn't bring very much to the table. He's not strong offensively, really. He's not especially strong defensively either. And again, he's just an older player. And I was a little confused by that one. And Jeff, I think a little bit, you could say a little bit more about it, but he wasn't on my radar of somebody that Nashville would target just because he didn't seem to fit the profile.
No, I mean, yeah, he's just like we saw with the other signings today. Like he's 33 years old. He's just kind of like, I'm not, if there's any player that fits the style that they're going to play or that they want to play, Gustav Nyquist would be the guy. Like, I still think he's fast enough. I think he can be enough on offense. Like, he can still contribute assists or whatever. I don't think he's going to get to, 53 points in 82 games again. If he does, that'd be great. Or 49 in 62. But like, why? Like, I think that's just my question. That and with all these signs, like, I think with Shen and O'Reilly, which we'll get to in a second, I think I understand a little bit of why, even though I disagree with the majority of it. But this one just feels random. Like it just feels like a guy you're gonna plug in and just kind of be like, all right, yeah, go out there, just do whatever. Like, he's gonna be a middle six person that is getting paid $3.185 million a year for 2 years.
Based on what you know about Barry, what do you think the calculus is? If you had to do your best guess, why do you think that is the reason?
I mean, I think Gustav Nyquist, I think he could be a guy. I mean, he has experience, and I think that's the bottom line for all of these moves that they made today was experience. And I think that Gustav Nyquist is a guy that you can put him into the third or the second line and be like, you know what? You're in charge. You take these guys, you take these middle six guys, and you teach them everything you know. Like, I think that I would trust Gustav Nyquist to do that. But the problem is, if he's not an effective player, then I don't really care. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with all of these.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, again,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, almost 3.2 over the next 2 years just seems weird. Again, if you're gonna be you're saving $5 million or $3 million next year, not having Duchene, but you're paying that money you're saving to have a guy like Nyquist, it's like,
who is less effective.
Yeah. So
what can Gustav Nyquist teach you that Matt Duchene cannot? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, again, going back to Duchene real quick, that trade clause I think was probably the main thing, which kind of sucks because that was a main allure for a lot of guys to come to Nashville. Was like, either they could get that because only a handful of guys got that from David Poile, but people were like, oh, if I go to Nashville, I get to be here. But It just Nyquist was just a weird one again, and for 3.2 over 2 years. I mean, I'm glad the term wasn't longer, and they've got space to play with.
I'm okay. I'm okay with him. You can trade him at this year's deadline if it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's potential there. Again, like I think a lot of it has been that he's been a little bit, he's been snake bitten a little bit recently. He's been kind of a liability on special teams, but I still think that he can be effective. I'm curious though about another guy, Jeff, about what you think, because for me, looking into it, I'm a little bit baffled by the Luke Schenn signing. I mean, he just doesn't seem to. I mean, I guess they really are kind of pushing that narrative of having a defenseman that's going to contribute offensively, but it just also seems like this is one of those where, yeah, but you're giving up a lot on the other end too. Like, he's not a guy that I'd put with, Yossi or anything like that, but I also wouldn't put him with Dante Fabro either.
Yeah, Luke Schenn is where I draw the problems. Like, he like, I have a lot of problems with this entire thing. And you know what I think it comes down to? Like I said, I think it comes down to the fact that Luke Schenn's won 2 cups. Like, and the fact that if I had this discussion with my father today, I was like, we had a heated debate about Luke Schenn, and we were talking, and he was like, who, if you see Luke Schenn, he compared him to Mark Borowiecki a little bit, in the fact that if you see Mark Borowiecki in front of the net, you might think twice about going there. Now, my problem with that is that I don't care if Luke Schenn is pushing people in front of the net. If he can't, if Luke Schenn cross-checks the guy in the back and then goes towards the guy with the puck and loses the guy behind him and then they score, I don't really care about whether or not he cross-checked the guy in the back in the first place. Like, NHL players are strong enough where going to the front of the net against a guy like Luke Schenn, like, I don't think you need to pay Luke Schenn for 3 years to go to the front of the net and be a bruiser, because he's not very good at moving the puck. He takes enough penalties for me to be like, like, it's not a lot, but it's not great. And he's not like, it's like,
So your dad's all in on it.
No, he doesn't like it, but he understands it, I think, is where I'm at. And like, if I'm sitting in Barry Trotz's shoes and I want to change the culture, sure, I bring in Luke Schenn. Like, why not? But I'm not paying him for 3 years at $2.75 million or whatever they're paying him for. Like, hell no, absolutely not. You want to talk to me about bringing in Luke Schenn for 2 years at $800,000? Sure, why not? But he's not worth almost $3 million. Are you kidding me? Like, no way.
Brian,
no way.
Yeah, I think looking at it from, like, holistically too, this is a guy that I guess he's not good defensively. He's not good on the penalty kill, which again, you see a kind of a trend in some of these guys they picked up. And this team was a kind of undisciplined this year because they were young. They had a lot of guys stepping in, and this team's going to be different. There's not very much chemistry left, to build around on this team. And so, like, penalties is going to be an issue. And so you get these guys in who are noted just for not being good to killing penalties, and you're like, all right, what else is it about Luke Schenn? He's got a lot of potential offensively, sure, but then you go and look and see, over the past few years, how many goals has he had? Because if you're going to have a guy that's an offensive defenseman, maybe let's see if he's producing goals. Not really. His career high is 5 2 years ago with the Canucks. He's had 3 seasons, including last year, of a career high 22 points. So it's just a little bit, and he's been not healthy for what? Let's see here, 3 out of the last 5 years. He didn't play more than 40 games. So,
what line does he make the most sense with right now?
Well, I mean, he's the guy to replace Borowiecki. Like,
I'd say
on
he's
the bottom pair.
Yeah.
I mean, he's your last guy. And again,
I guess, like, I don't want to give Jake Livingstone playing time. I think that's kind of what that is. Like, they aren't going to put Spencer Stastny or Jake Livingstone down there consistently.
I disagree. I think we're going to see a lot of Spencer Stastny next year.
I can't tell. I can't tell, because I don't mean to like kind of barge in here, but I'm just gonna say, like, the part of this that I don't understand is like, you come out, it's your first or second day. I don't know when he said this, but he talked about getting younger, getting faster, getting stronger, getting more, speed through the three zones, through the neutral zone and transition. And then he hires Andrew Burnett, who is a speed first coach. And he's, either making these moves that, are designed to make the team faster and have them have the puck more, like more possession. And then and then July 1st hits, and you sign a slow old Ryan O'Reilly, who I will say this. I don't think he should. I 4 years I'm not a huge fan of, but I think that's the contract that I'm most okay with. And then you sign Luke Schenn. Okay. And then you sign Gustav Nyquist, who is just He's He's whatever. He's a random, like, you just kind of pick him out of a hat. But like, what do these moves do to help you?
I think I can tell you that. I mean, we said before that them filling up the roster for next season probably wasn't going to be pretty. Like, they're going to have space in free agency to play around, but that space is probably not going to be sent, on trying to sign Patrick Kane or one of those types of guys. Like, that's not what they're trying to do in the next few years. And these guys, yeah, they're not great deals. They're not great players, historically, but we're talking
Ryan O'Reilly is, but
well, yeah, and I was going to get back to that.
I'm totally okay with Ryan O'Reilly. I'm good with him.
Ryan O'Reilly is exactly, again, he's that signing of, like, when they say, like, we got this guy because of his veteran presence or whatever, and we're going to have that type of guy in, when you sign a Wayne Simmons or somebody like that. But like, Ryan O'Reilly that's an excellent signing, and I like the deal. Yeah. I have no problem with Ryan O'Reilly. That signing, like, that's kind of a fun one that took me by surprise, and I was like, I'm really actually looking forward to covering, seeing what he does. So
we got hit in the face with Luke Schenn, and then they like gave us here you go as a consolation prize. Here's Ryan O'Reilly.
So do we agree that O'Reilly is going to be the most beloved of the new three signings?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, he would have been no matter what. I think just because he's got a ring. He's played on on some good teams. I was kind of surprised that the Toronto thing didn't last longer, but I mean, I think that's a really good signing, and I'm not mad at it. But we have to also, again, like, put this in perspective. Like, they're like, why are they getting these subpar guys? It's like, well, they're kind of cheap, and they're not going to be good. We don't need them trying to be that good this year. So it's kind of one of those where it's like, yeah, this is where it starts getting a little bit ugly and a little bit hard to stomach. But I mean, they didn't do anything egregious. They didn't give who was it? They got like a 5 or 6 like, who did the Avs give like a 6-year deal to, or
Miles Wood?
Yeah, like why? Like I'm glad that didn't
I don't
happen.
understand that at all.
But Toronto,
I think my thing is like, Toronto gave John Klingberg, well, they gave him a year for $4 million. And I don't think they gave somebody else a bunch of money too. But like, I think my thing is like, why not get a Ryan O'Reilly? And obviously I don't want, for example, Anaheim signed Radko Gudas to a bunch of money, and in comparison to Luke Schenn, bring me Luke Schenn all day. I will take Luke Schenn compared to compared to Radko Gudas.
Well, that was their appetizer for DeBrincat.
Yeah. I sure hope not. But I think that, like, I don't know. I feel like I also found it weird, like, there weren't a ton of players on the market. Like, Barry Trotz said that he wasn't going to be super active. And then he like came out and was like, we're 13 minutes in and we have Luke Schenn and Ryan O'Reilly. Like, okay. I just kind of, I don't know. I feel like there were better options to kind of accomplish the goals that they've set out, while also, I think you can sign, or I don't think you need Gustav. Who I would have loved to see? I would have loved to see them get Daniel Sprong instead of Gustav Nyquist. Like, I think
I was surprised that he went to Detroit. I thought that I was kind of surprised that Seattle didn't try to keep him, but
yeah,
I wouldn't have liked Sprong in Nashville personally. So
really, huh?
I don't think so. I think inconsistent, and I don't know. He's a player that just like I've never really liked. Again, I feel like I can't back it up right now with stats, but it's just
I like him a lot. I'm a big fan of Daniel Sprung. I don't watch him like a ton, but like, I mean, I don't think he's any worse than Gustav Nyquist.
Yeah.
Like, and I like, you know, why not Bryan Dumoulin? Like, he was out there. Like, I mean, I'm just throwing these names out. Like, I think that there were better defensemen for the money that you're giving other players who are arguably worse, like, or just as good. Like, I don't know.
I mean, none of the deals are like over like $4 million. None of them are longer than 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like. In 3 years, it's going to be like whatever. But like,
I'm finding it too hard to think that this is too much of a big. Like, I think I feel like this is not that big of a deal, just because this is short term. They're going to have these type of players on the team as they're trying to turn things around, and like, yeah, they're not great, even if we're just evaluating them, objectively, but they're not. There's nothing here that's going to be like this is going to set the team back for a year or two or whatever. Like, they're not great, and just as player evaluation, you're like, these guys really. But I mean, you have to also take into consideration there's all these free agents out there going, I see what they're doing in Nashville. That's cool, but I'm not going there to win in the next couple of years. I mean, I think Trotz said something today about, he doesn't want players that want to come and retire in Nashville. He wants players that come and win. So, he doesn't, I think he's also pivoting a little bit away from that picture that, Nashville would present to free agents. Like, here's this place. It's great for your family. You can move here. There's no state income tax, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, okay, yeah, but that's great. But we don't want guys who just want to be in Nashville, which again, I think that it kind of explains it. Like, these guys aren't going to be long-term. These aren't guys that are going to lead, going to be seeing their jerseys 5 or 6 years down the road. So and this isn't, I think you have every right to be critical of all those moves, Jeff, but just on the list of things that, could have gone right or wrong, like it's fine. Like, I just don't think it matters too much.
Speaking of names in the rafters, Cody Glass and Alex Carrier in the next 4 to 5 years, which of the two do you think has the better chance of seeing there? Okay, I can't get into this bit, Brian, but they're back and they're resigned. What did you make of those two contract extensions?
I was surprised. I knew that they both would get qualified. I knew that wouldn't be an issue, especially because I knew that there wasn't a ton of guys that the Preds were going to want to qualify. So and they were qualified those two. I think both of them had a strong case, I think, for the players to take Nashville to arbitration, just because in previous years arbitration has gone pretty well for both sides when they've had to go through it, just because, like Dante Fabro kind of got that fair evaluation and got the amount of money he got. Rocco Grimaldi, Colton Sissons, I believe. I'm trying to think who else. Who else was it recently that went through arbitration? Well, anyways,
Trennan went through arbitration.
Yeah, and like I think it would have been something that could have like set pretty good terms up for like helping out the player. I think Cody Glass and Carrier both, I think they had fair arguments to get a little bit more than what they got. But I think that was really good that Nashville didn't even, they were just like, nope, let's get this done with now. Let's get them signed. And the players thought it was a good enough deal that they took that, because again, I felt like those two players kind of had a little bit of a position of, they had a little bit of an advantageous position, hey, we're young players that have potential, that you've seen us and you've seen our, what we can do and provide for this team. I mean, especially Carrier, I think you should pay us just a little bit more because we're going to be really important for what you want to do. Those are two guys that I think Brunette is 100% wants on that team, but good for them, good for the Predators. They got the deal worked out. This is a absolute win just because these are guys that fit, they were good in the previous regime. They were good because they're players that can help you win, but they're both young guys and you do want them going forward. So the fact they got them those deals done, pretty decent deals, I'm 100% satisfied.
I like it. In terms of the NHL draft, Jeff, we talked about who made the most sense potentially for the Preds, who you would have liked to have seen them end up with in the first round, in particular with their 2 picks. How, based on how the draft fell, because I think we have to put that context in there based on who was picked before them and what ended up happening, how would you rate how the Preds came out of the first round, and Who did you like more of the two picks, and how did just overall thoughts on the Preds first round here?
I thought they did. I thought they did fine. I mean, they, I had one player ranked ahead of Matthew Wood among the guys who were left at that point, and that was Oliver Moore, who the Chicago Blackhawks took. They had one hell of a first round. Getting Connor Bedard and Oliver Moore guarantees that they're going to be fun very soon, and it's very frustrating.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's frustrating for all the Preds fans out there. But I like Matthew Wood. I think he's a good player. Youngest player in college hockey. I think he's great shot. He's big. He's I think he gets a lot of hate for his skating. And it's understandable, but I don't really think it's that bad. And you can teach skating. I'm not worried about that part.
What's the issue there that people are upset about?
His mechanics changing direction.
He's not super agile. I guess is his starts are not super fast. Like when he's standing still, it takes him like a few big strides to kind of get going. But when he gets going, he's really good because his hands can complement the speed and his length with his arms and the stick that he has. But
that can get better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm confident that I've seen the Preds skating coaches do their work. I think I'm pretty confident, and I've seen bad skaters be turned into good skaters. That's not.
Who's the best example for the Preds?
Ooh, that's a good question.
A guy about his skating or overall?
Yeah, just his skate. Went from a bad skater coming in to the organization, then was actually developed into a pretty solid one.
I mean, I would say. I mean, this is just kind of. I'm not going to be able to tell you based off film and stuff, but I didn't think that Alex Carrier could really translate what he did, as when he was younger, into NHL level. I didn't think that his mobility was good enough for the NHL. And I think his time in Milwaukee for 3 or 4 years, really helped him, and that's a testament to kind of the skating. He's a very good skater, I'd say now. But I mean, we talked about Ryan Johansen was a guy that he didn't really necessarily need to be the best skater on the ice because he had other things to kind of back that up. And I think
he was big. He could move the puck well. He could shoot.
He had a long
arm.
Arm span, so it's kind of you can see where he's getting to. And you got to love this kid because we asked him, after when he got drafted, we got a chance to talk to him, and he's like, who's the player that you model yourself after? And of course he's like, I'm Tage Thompson.
Yeah.
That's what the people want to hear because that's the guy gives them an immediate comparable in their mind to what they're expecting out of this kid. He's a great shooter. I mean,
great accuracy. He's really good. Just at changing, the angle of the shot in general. His hands in tight are really good, but when he's pressed against the defender, he can, kind of turn his body in different ways and manipulate the puck with his stick, the length of his stick and his arm span or his wingspan. He can just, the way he changed. I have one clip in the prospect profile I did where he had a guy right up on him and a guy was standing in front of the net and he brought it all the way in and the goalie didn't see him move it. So the entire left side or the right side of the net was open. And so he just fired it straight at the post and it went right in. It's that kind of stuff that makes him different, just the ability to change the angle. And, he's a great shooter. His hands are really, they complement kind of that part of his game really well. And so, if he can get his body moving a little quicker on the rush, I think, and he, what's funny is he loves to have the puck. When you watch him play you will rarely watch him leave the zone without the puck. He is a big player in transition for UConn. And I think that's also something that, is something that the scouts and Barry Trotz and his team noticed. I think that's important.
Yeah, so. I mean, he's got that. I think he's got the tools offensively to make him really, really effective. But those skating mechanics, I think, one of the things is if he gets caught in transition or on a rush, and he's going to be playing skating on his heels, I think you're going to have a lot of issues just because it's going to take him time to recover from having to, switch direction, things like that. And when you're a guy who's known for your offense and stuff, like that can become a big development, roadblock, is that, these guys that can be really, really strong offensively, but then they are they worth the liability of what they give up defensively? I think that we're picking at hairs a little bit just because, again, like I think the skating things can be worked out. And I think that, they did a pretty good job addressing, I guess, the doubts that people had about the skating ability of Wood, just because of, the second guy they picked in the first is universally like a fantastic skater. So
do you think that was by design? More of a, like, just you have one who's a work in progress and one is coming in to that. Does that make it more likely that Tanner makes his way to the Nashville Predators before Wood, or no?
No.
I don't think so. I think there's area. I think Mollendike's just a really, really, really good skater. I think he has a lot of work to do. Like, I don't think he's a bad pick. I mean, I would have picked a couple people over him there. I think they could have traded up in the second round and got him. But I think, I think his skating is a really big key to his success moving forward. Like, I don't think there's any way. I mean, you watch him play. He's so fun to watch. Like, just skating wise, I think he can move the puck. Okay, he's a good transition player, and he'll get better at that as he gets better, or as he grows in whatever league he plays in. But yeah, I mean, I think Matthew Wood is the safer bet to get to the NHL quicker. I think also just because his size and how he's able to kind of protect the puck. But when they first picked Mollendike, I was a little bit like, I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this, just because I thought that they could have gotten that value in the early second round. But, after watching some stuff, I think that they can, especially with their track record with defensemen, I don't think I need to be worried, and I don't think anybody else needs to be worried about how he works out.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. In terms of the rest of the draft, Jeff, you're deep into here. Bryan and I are going to need your expertise here.
I do have an answer though for this one.
Okay.
But I'm afraid because I'm like, man, I know Jeff's going to take it because I think it's the one that I kind of read on the most and going, I like. Is it Jesse Kliskinen? He was 68th overall.
That's actually not my pick.
Okay, good.
That's not my pick. Yeah,
I think he's a good shooter. I think he's one of those guys that I think is going to come up and kind of surprise you and be like, oh, he's a third rounder or second rounder, or you didn't kind of expect him to pop up a little as early maybe as he does in like the AHL, or maybe getting some time in. But I like him a lot. I think he's a guy that is a perfect pick for that middle of the draft area. That there's a lot of things that can be worked on, but I think he is a project that I think you have a higher likelihood of succeeding with than some others. I like that one a lot.
Who's your biggest deal, Jeff?
Mine was Aiden Fink, the last pick of David Poyle's career, at 218th overall.
Interesting.
I think he's kind of, he's a great forechecker. I think, he's a good skater. He could work on it a little bit, but he's a good skater. He's an effective skater. He's a good forechecker. I mean, I think I was looking at him the other day, and here are the highest he's ranked is by Chris Peters at Flow Hockey, and he was ranked 72nd overall. And I think there's something to be said about that. He wasn't ranked anywhere in the 200s. The lowest he was ranked was 132nd. So I think that he's a good shooter. I think he can get better everywhere, but he's a good shooter. He's a good skater. He kind of has that, like, I'm trying to think of a first round comparable. Like a Gavin Brindley kind of vibe. Gavin Brindley's a smart player first and foremost. I think Aiden Fink's a smart player. The way he gets to pucks when he's forechecking is he takes the right routes and everything. But I also think, like, he can shoot the puck. Gavin Brindley can shoot the puck. And it's not enough for me to say that that's a weakness of his. And he can, he's good at kind of manipulating and changing angles and finding kind of open pockets to shoot. But also he's a solid skater. He gets to places. He can refine that when he goes back and, plays in juniors and whatever. But I think that he might turn out to be, an effective player. I don't want to say that he'll make the NHL yet, because I need to watch him a little bit more to decide, and I need to see him this year. But I think that, he's someone to watch. I'd be interested to see kind of how he develops moving forward.
I like it. Bryan, as we wrap up here on this fun, loaded news, draft, free agency, trades, DFAs, money going one way, money going the other. A fun addition here on the Preds Power. I feel like you have a question for us, though, to wrap up here tonight.
I do. As I was trying to, get Twitter working, things like that, and doing something, I did get a tweet through that got a pretty good amount of engagement, but it's more just because I'm very curious to hear what everybody has to answer. So I think the thing I proposed was you're a free agent in the NHL and you're getting ready to sign a 3-year deal with a team, and they give you the option to have a 5-team no trade clause list. What are your 5 teams? So Jeff, I'll let you go first. What are the 5 teams that you would put on your list?
Oh man,
how old am I?
I haven't even thought about this.
Just you're you right now. Let's say that.
Okay, I'm 32 then. All right.
Yeah, so you're basically on your way out.
I was going to say
I'm getting the 35.
I'm a rookie coming in.
Yeah. All right, this is good. We'll have very different answers here, Jeff. All
right.
While you're thinking, I could probably throw mine out now. I would say the Blue Jackets, 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Ducks, 2. I would say Canucks, 3. Flyers, 4. And Canadians, 5.
I'm not going to say, as somebody who's not as deep into hockey as the rest of us, I think those are really 5 good, smart picks. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, like I can't. Yeah, those are really good. All right, Jeff. So what do you think? Or do you want me to give you mine?
I mean, you can give me yours. I have 3, but I got to think of the other 2.
Right, let's let you get there. So I said Columbus. I love Columbus's arena, and I actually don't. I like the hockey team. I wouldn't want to be around Babcock, and honestly, I don't want to live in town with Ohio State fans. So
very good points.
I said Toronto, but this is unironically, it's because I would absolutely crumble under the pressure.
That's you know what that's gonna be my reasoning, because I have Toronto too, and I'm soft as hell. Yeah, I can't handle it.
Florida, again, I like the Panthers and what they're doing. I get to hang out with Colby down there in South Florida, but at the same time, I went to high school there for 2 years. You can't make me go back. I don't have to go back to that state for any reason, really. I would say Philadelphia, because 1, I don't know if I want to be in that organization, but 2, I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan in my life, and I've said a lot of stuff about the city of Philadelphia, and I would take back pretty much none of it. So it just wouldn't work out for either side, I think, for Philadelphia.
Also at our age, Bryan, we have to be careful with where we go, because it's like they haven't gotten it right for our entire lives. Like, they're probably not going to get it in the last 5 years of our careers. Yeah. Either. So we can just bet against the Flyers. We can bet against the Blue Jackets. We can bet against the Canadians, really.
Yeah, and then like my 5th one, I kind of put as a joke, just because like there are a lot of teams where it's like I would like to go there, but then there's I wouldn't want to play hockey there. I'd like to live there, but not play hockey. But then I said, I think my other one was I wouldn't want to go to the Islanders, just because they don't have the car arena car anymore in the arena. So I mean, like what's the point? So yeah, I mean, because
I'd rather be an Islander than a Ranger, though.
Yeah, I could say that's a very strong argument. I think somebody else said that, like, it's the pressure. I wouldn't want to be
also the Sabres right now is a sneaky good pick. It's cold as hell. You're up there. You're not even in Toronto. At least in Toronto, you have you're just there. It's a more fun city. Buffalo, you're in the cold. You're in the tundra.
You haven't even gotten to mine.
Terrible.
Not even Marshawn Lynch could really fully salvage it. But no, let's hear it, Jeff. Let's see it. You got it now.
All right. So I got Buffalo and I got Toronto, both on there. Too cold. Don't want to deal with the Toronto market. I'm soft. And then I got San Jose. I don't really want to I don't mind California, but I think the San Jose organization, I'm not really a fan of playing hockey in. And then what was my other one? Winnipeg.
How would you even get there? There's no way to.
Right?
You have to drive.
I have to take a bus.
No airport.
There's no airport. Yeah.
Do you know where there is
Winnipeg,
an airport? Atlanta. Kidding.
That's right. And then Columbus, probably.
Yeah.
Well, actually, now that I think about it, I'm struggling between Columbus and Edmonton. Because Edmonton is also very cold.
Yeah,
Edmonton is also not run very well, so I don't.
But you'd be good enough to get on a line with one of those guys, and you're gonna get a good contract the next year. I mean,
yeah.
Who's your number one? Like, who would you go to? Because for me, I think it's the Kraken.
Who would I go to?
I think the Kraken's my number one.
It's going to be extremely telling of me, but I'd say the Kraken or Vegas. I mean, I like the way those
live in Vegas. I've never really the dry heat so hot. I think I would get annoyed with the Vegas vibe. I think I would love Vegas at 24. I think at 32, I'm out. It doesn't have it for me.
I mean, I don't know. I think if I did amend mine one about the New York Islanders, I think I would take that off. And I'm going to be very careful how I would say this. But I think the other team, the fifth team on my no trade list, would be Nashville. Not because, not wanting to play for them, but if I'm not good, like, I know everybody, like, Preds Twitter will absolutely destroy me. Will just absolutely run me through the ringer. And I know I'm not.
You'll have me yelling at you every day.
Yeah, but none of y'all said Boston.
I'd love to play in Boston.
Okay.
I would love it.
Yeah, you're making me rethink things now, Chase. I mean, they're good. I'll take that, I guess.
They're going to be good the whole time
I love
they're there.
The city.
Yeah.
I'm a big Boston fan. I'd probably want to play in... I mean, yeah, there you go. Look at that. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'd love to play for the Rangers. Like, the Rangers or the Devils, like the metropolitan teams. Like, I'd play in Pittsburgh. I'd play in Philly. I'd play in New Jersey.
Definitely on the top 5 list for me. That'd be
I mean, I'd play anywhere up there. And New Jersey also has a special place in my heart. So there's
I would love to get into. I would.
And they just have a fun team. Like,
yeah. Look at Jeff and Jack Hughes. That's what we're learning here.
Yeah.
Jeff just wants to. They're close in age. Jeff just wants to be best friends with Jack Hughes.
That's what we're learning. We spent a good amount of time with him talking about his boy Jack there.
He's all in on Jack Hughes. The Jack Hughes references on this podcast. We're familiar with your game, Jeff.
So I'll say real quick, what do you guys think was, and I haven't compiled it because I'm going to, but what do you think was some of the like one or two of the most common answers from people?
Minnesota.
No, not at all.
No, really? Oh, not really. I'd like to play in Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota would be a fun place to play.
Wait, most common for negative or positive?
Yeah, people that most commonly put on their no trade team.
Then I'd say
Winnipeg.
That one got a fair amount of play. Yeah, I would say Winnipeg. The other one shouldn't surprise you.
I would say
it's
Oilers.
No, not too much. I think
Chicago?
Some people. That was one of them. And that's for a fairly obvious reason.
Yes,
mostly because a lot of the people were Preds fans. But
Buffalo?
No, if you think about it real hard, if you were a guy who's trying to sign for the next 3 years, and you wanted to be involved with a franchise that was in the right direction, or give you a hint, likely to exist in 3 years.
Oh, the Coyotes.
Yeah, that was the common one from almost everybody. Was they want to go? I'd love to go out there and just do that, mess around for 2 years, and then know that. I may not make the third year, but I may not want to either. So,
yeah.
God, we say that, but they're going to exist for the next 25 years.
And I hope they do.
Leave.
I hope they do.
I hope they do as well.
We don't need any expansion's good now. Like, we don't have to add anybody else. We don't need to move anybody. I don't need a Kansas City.
Well, expansion's happening. What Atlanta's building in Forsyth County and the amount of money that they are putting into that project to not get an NHL team for that would be hilarious. But I do love my Gwinnett Gladiators. Now the Atlanta Gladiators are now the affiliate of the Nashville Predators. They waited until I left, which shout out to them.
Well, I was going to say, though, I am, excited. He hasn't announced this, but Chase is going to be doing a lot of live, remote work from from Atlanta on these ECHL games. So
I go home during that time of year every year, so I am going to be there, and I can actually wear Preds stuff and be like, "This isn't weird. I can even report. I can report on these games.
Get you credentials, dude. I bet you
dude.
got on it now." And you thought I was kidding, but no, you're doing this for us, man.
I'll do
it. Yeah,
I'm down.
I'm honest.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. I thought it was interesting to see everybody's reactions as far as where they wouldn't want to go. A lot of it was like Pittsburgh because they just hate the Penguins. I had some answers like Anaheim 5 times because screw them. That was a good one. But yeah, it was Chicago, it was Arizona, it was Winnipeg. Some people said Tampa Bay, which again, I think I probably should have added them too, because again, I lived in Tampa. Tampa's probably the best of all the Florida cities in my opinion, but still, I did my time. I'm good. I don't have to go back.
There you go. Bryan Bastin, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over on ontheforecheck.com this week?
Well, the fun's not over because development camp is next week, so we'll be there. The jury is out if I will be able to be there every day of dev camp, but it is always a really fun experience. It's open to the public usually over at Fordyce Center Bellevue. Is it this year, Jeff?
I think so, yeah.
So, that was really cool to go over there earlier in the week to see some of the prospect stuff. And it's always a good time just because it's the first chance to see some of these guys. And it feels like just yesterday that I was talking to you guys about development camp last year, which was really weird. I had that moment of deja vu and I was like, no, that was a full year ago there, buddy. So yeah, there's plenty more to go. And I'm sure that free agency isn't over. So we're going to see a lot of stuff. We're going to hopefully be writing. I get to write the article saying that the Nashville has signed Evan Rodriguez. So we'll see.
That another tradition unlike any other. That's a Groundhog Day, the Evan Rodriguez. And we'll see Fedor. Maybe he gets right. Does he make it up to Nashville this year? Who knows?
Brinket also, yeah.
Jeff, what about you? Flames Nation and everywhere else this week?
Just covering free agency stuff, doing some more work on the drama going down in Calgary. Elias Lindholm has still not made a decision on whether he wants to stay or not. Michael Backlund has not made a decision on whether he wants to stay or not.
Why would they?
It's a good question. They offered Michael Backlund the captaincy, and we haven't heard much about that since then, since that was reported. Tyler Toffoli was out. Noah Hannafin wants out. Lots of stuff going on. Dustin Wolf won another award today. So that was cool. But yeah, just a lot of that stuff. And on the forecheck, kind of just going over what we talked about, actually, just kind of talking about why this does and doesn't make sense for the Preds, this being the moves that they made today and any moves that they might make in the future. So yeah,
just anxiously waiting for the offseason to start.
I know, yeah. Exactly.
There you go. Bryan Bastin, Jeff Middleton, thank you as always, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.